Libertarianism 101. Lesson 3. But what about the roads? Welcome back to Libertarianism 101. By now, you know the foundation. You own yourself, and you understand the rule. Don't initiate force or fraud. But I know what you're thinking. Actually, I know exactly what you're thinking. Because every libertarian has heard this question about 1 million times. Okay, but what about the roads? If there's no government, who's going to build the roads? So let's tackle this head-on. Not just roads, but all the common objections people throw at libertarian ideas. Because yes, libertarians have thought about this stuff. Let's go. First, let's address the roads question specifically, because it's become kind of a meme at this point. Here's the thing. When someone asks, what about the roads? What they're really asking is, how would essential services work without government providing them? It's a fair question. Roads are important. We need infrastructure. So how would libertarians handle it? Well, here's the reality check. Private roads already exist. Toll roads, private parking lots, driveways, the roads inside gated communities, private bridges, all built and maintained without government. Companies like FedEx and Amazon have entire logistics networks with private roads and infrastructure. Disney World has miles of private roads that are maintained better than most public highways. So the idea that only government can build roads is just factually wrong. But let's go deeper. There are different libertarian answers depending on what kind of libertarian you're talking to. Remember, libertarianism is a spectrum. A minarchist, someone who believes in minimal government, would say, yes, we still have some government, and basic infrastructure like roads could be one of the few legitimate functions funded through minimal taxation or user fees. That's one answer. An anarcho-capitalist, someone who believes in zero government, would say, roads would be built by private companies funded by tolls, subscriptions, or businesses that benefit from having customers able to reach them. In fact, private roads would probably be better maintained because companies have to compete for your business, unlike the government, which has a monopoly. That's another answer. And here's a third option that actually exists right now. Many roads are already built by developers. When a company builds a shopping center or housing development, they build the roads leading to it. Why? Because they need customers and residents to be able to get there. It's in their financial interest. No government required. The point is, libertarians aren't saying we wouldn't have roads. We're saying the roads we have now aren't evidence that only government can provide them. In fact, government roads are famous for being over budget, behind schedule, full of potholes, and plagued by corruption. Ever heard of the Big Dig in Boston? A project estimated at $2.6 billion that ended up costing over $24 billion. That's government efficiency for you. But let's move beyond roads, because this question is really about a bigger concern. Without government, won't society fall apart? Who will provide essential services? So let's run through some common ones. What about fire departments? Private fire services already exist. They're common in rural areas. Historically, fire departments were often private and subscription-based. You paid a fee, they protected your property. Some insurance companies even run their own fire services because it's cheaper to prevent the fire than pay out the claim. Could this work everywhere? Libertarians would say yes. Competition and profit motive would make them more efficient and responsive than government monopolies. What about police? This is trickier, and libertarians have different views. Some say private security and arbitration services could handle most of what police do. After all, we already have private security guards, private investigators, and private arbitration for disputes. Others say a minimal night watchman state should handle law enforcement to protect rights. But here's what almost all libertarians agree on. The current police system, with civil asset forfeiture, qualified immunity, and no real accountability, is broken. We can do better. What about national defense? Most libertarians, even anarcho-capitalists, agree we need defense. The disagreement is about scope. Libertarians generally oppose offensive wars, nation-building, and having military bases in 150 countries, but defending actual borders and responding to genuine threats, that's legitimate. Some libertarians say this is the one thing government should do. Others propose private defense arrangements or militias. But nobody's saying, let's just leave ourselves defenseless. What about the poor? Here's where people really think they've got libertarians cornered. Without government welfare, won't people starve? But think about this. Before the massive welfare state, how did people survive? Through mutual aid societies, churches, charities, community organizations, and families helping each other. And here's the thing. Americans are incredibly generous. We donate hundreds of billions to charity every year, and that's after the government has already taken a huge chunk of our income. Imagine how much more people could give if they kept more of their own money. Plus, libertarians argue the best anti-poverty program is economic freedom. When you remove excessive regulations, licensing requirements, taxes, and barriers to starting businesses, poor people have more opportunities to lift themselves up. The government doesn't make people prosperous. Freedom does. What about education? Public schools are struggling everywhere. They're expensive, bureaucratic, and many are failing kids, especially in poor neighborhoods. Libertarians point to private schools, homeschooling, and charter schools that often deliver better results for less money. In a free market for education, schools would compete for students, innovate, and actually have to deliver results or go out of business, unlike public schools, which get funded regardless of performance. What about healthcare? The US healthcare system is a disaster, but it's not a free market. It's one of the most regulated industries in America. Insurance is tied to employment because of government policy from World War II. You can't buy insurance across state lines because of government regulations. Drug prices are sky high, partly because of patent laws and FDA regulations that cost billions and take years. Libertarians argue that actual free market healthcare, where prices are transparent, competition exists, and innovation isn't strangled by regulation, would be better and cheaper than what we have now. Here's the pattern you should be noticing. For every "what about" question, libertarians aren't saying, "Too bad, figure it out yourself." We're saying there are alternatives to government monopolies, and those alternatives are often better, cheaper, and more responsive to people's actual needs. But let's address the real concern behind all these questions. People worry that without government force, society would descend into chaos. That people are too selfish or stupid to cooperate voluntarily. That we need government to impose order. But here's what libertarians believe. Humans are pretty good at solving problems when you let them. We cooperate, innovate, and organize ourselves all the time without anyone forcing us. Every time you buy something at a store, that's voluntary cooperation. Every charity, every business, every community organization, every friendship, all voluntary. The vast majority of human interaction happens without government involvement, and it works. Government isn't the thing holding society together. Government is just one institution among many, and it's the only one that relies on force. Libertarians think we're over-reliant on it, and that if we trusted freedom more and coercion less, we'd be better off. Now, I'm not saying libertarians have perfect answers to everything. There are genuine debates within libertarianism about how certain things would work. But that's okay. The point isn't that libertarians have a detailed central plan for how society should run. That would be very un-libertarian. The point is that we trust free people to figure things out better than bureaucrats and politicians can. So the next time someone asks you, "But what about the roads?" you can say, "What about them?" Private entities build complex infrastructure all the time. The question isn't whether we'd have roads. The question is whether government monopolies are really the best way to provide them. And then ask them, what about the potholes? What about the $24 billion big dig? What about the fact that government roads are already terrible? In the next video, we're going to explore the libertarian spectrum, because not all libertarians agree on everything. There are left libertarians and right libertarians, minarchists and anarcho-capitalists, classical liberals and voluntarists. Understanding these differences will help you figure out where you might land on the spectrum. But for now, you've got the answers to the most common objections: roads, police, defense, welfare, education, health care. Libertarians have thought about all of it. We just come to different conclusions than people who think government force is the answer to every problem. If this series is helping you understand libertarianism, hit subscribe. Drop a comment with the "what about" question I didn't cover, and I'll try to address it. And if you've ever been the person asking, "But what about the roads?" I hope you've got some new things to think about. Welcome back to Libertarianism 101. See you next time.